This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I'm going to call the SEDA meeting to order and ask for a roll call. Neil?
Board Member Van Gordon?
Present.
Mo?
Here.
Moore?
Here?
Thayer?
Here.
Chair Woodrow?
Here.
Missionary?
Here.
Lundberg?
Here.
And Bernie.
Here.
First item.
The first item is communications business from the audience. We did receive emails, and we do have at least one person in the audience that would like to speak.
Okay, and I have something to read beforehand. As we begin our meeting tonight, I would like to ask members of the audience who are joining us by phone or online to please keep yourselves on mute until you are called to provide public testimony. There is one time designated for public testimony this evening during business from the audience. If you are joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak during that time, please use the chat window. It looks like a speech balloon in the upper right corner. Please send a comment to the organizer with your name, mailing address, and the subject you would like to speak about. You can select the organizer at the bottom of the chat window. I will call on you when it is your turn to speak. The order of public testimony is as follows. Anyone in person in the council chambers, AJ will notify you. Number 2, anyone who has submitted a chat. Number 3, anyone who has submitted email in advance. If there is remaining time, it will be read, emails will be read into the record. So we're ready for business from the audience?
Well,
Yes, and it,
there are several microphones, I think, that are not muted.
Oh, it went quiet. I think we're muted now.
Chair
Okay.
Woodrow, we do not have anyone in the council chambers, correct, AJ?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay.
We have at least one person, Mike Eister, who would like to speak, and I can activate his microphone now.
Okay. Okay, if you would identify yourself and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
My name is Mike Eister and I live in Ward 2. I'm here tonight to request 3 things. 1, need a vote to put the indoor track project on indefinite hold and discontinue work on the project until more is known about our recovery from the COVID-induced recession. 2, SEDA directs staff to keep all possibilities on the table for development in Glenwood and further direct staff to actively solicit interest by private developers in developing the entire Northeast Glenwood site. Consider re-engaging with Abe Vargas or a similarly well-qualified consultant to ensure high-quality solicitation of private developers. 3, SEDA direct the staff to hold a forum inviting members of the public to learn about the project and have an opportunity to comment on the project prior to voting on any resolution to advance the indoor track project. I've heard elected leaders who are advocates for the track state that there is no interest on the part of private developers in development in Glenwood. I know from personal experience that there have been well-qualified and well-funded developers who have been interested in developing in Glenwood who were turned away by the city. Instead of discouraging private development, the city should be aggressively soliciting private development in Glenwood. This private development will generate millions of dollars in tax revenue that will directly benefit Glenwood and Springfield residents. Elected leaders who are advocates for the indoor track are documented as discouraging and disregarding comments. Discounting and disregarding comments from other SEDA members who have asked for public engagement in this project. This multi-million-dollar project that will tie up the most beautiful riverfront land in Glenwood for decades demands that the public have an opportunity to become aware of the project learn about the project, and ask questions about the project. So once again, I'm asking, one, you put the indoor track project on indefinite hold and discontinue work on the project. Two, you aggressively seek private parties to develop Northeast Glenwood. Three, prior to voting on any resolution to move forward on an indoor track in Glenwood, you hold a public forum to solicit input from the public. AJ, I'll provide you with an electronic version of my comments and ask that they be entered into the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else, Neil?
Chair Woodrow, I do not see anyone. We haven't been contacted. I would ask if there is someone in the audience who would like to speak, they would activate their microphone now, and then we would know who they are. In the meantime, I can tell you we received 5 pieces of electronic mail, which you should have received from AJ in your inbox. 5 written pieces. It appears 4 are in favor of the project and 1 is in opposition of the project. We do have another speaker. I apologize for doing that a little out of order. I just wanted to give folks a chance to get ready. And it appears it is Carrie Westland.
Okay.
Thank you, Neil. I apologize. I contacted AJ instead of Neil.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Identify yourself and limit your remarks to less than 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Woodrow. Good evening, everyone. I am Carrie Westland. I'm the president and CEO of Travel Lane County. I did send you an email today. I am not going to read that email to you. I just wanted to reiterate my support for the agenda item before you to enable us to continue planning on the indoor track, sports and event facilities so that we can more fully define the project and bring it back before you, the SEDA board, the Springfield City Council, and the public. Without a committed site to work against, we cannot fully cost and vet the project in order to bring it to the public for the assessment that has been requested by the previous speaker. We really have been working hard on this project. We think it's going to be a beautiful asset for Glenwood. It is going to attract and enable every resident of Springfield to access the riverfront, and not just community and business leaders that would attend a conference in a designated conference facility. So while I support conference space and I think Springfield needs it, if we're really going to profoundly change Springfield forever and connect Glenwood to Springfield forever, I think this is a project that will benefit residents and drive economic development. And I hope you'll support us in moving the effort forward so that you can more fully assess it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil, do we have anyone else?
Chair, it does not appear we have anyone else ready to speak.
Okay. Next item, I see correspondence next and then business from the staff. So under communications.
I apologize, Chair Woodrow. It appears we do have one additional speaker. They're coming in a little bit slow, so I apologize. And this speaker, if you're open to it, we hadn't moved on, but are you good with another speaker?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So that speaker is Michael Riley, and I will unmute you now, Michael.
Michael, if you would identify yourself and keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Riley. I am the CEO of Tracktown USA, an organization you may know, responsible for delivering many of the major national and international track and field events that have come not only to our community, but also to Portland, Oregon. I would just like to encourage the committee to support, as Carrie Westland did, advancing this initiative. By way of experience, I would share that on February 27th of this year, James West, a senior on the University of Oregon track and field team, ran the fastest 1,500 meters in collegiate history. He did so by traveling all the way to Boston. Additionally, the very next day, Portland's Karishma Schweitzer, a member of the Bowerman Track Club, set the American indoor record at 3,000 meters. She also traveled all the way to Boston. Those performances could have been held right here in our community, in this venue, putting this community in national and international spotlights for those performances. There is no proposed facility like this anywhere on the West Coast. In March of 2016, we conducted the World Indoor Track and Field Championships in Portland. But prior to that event, we ran a series of indoor meets in an old rundown warehouse in Portland to give people a chance to compete. We attracted many of this nation's best track and field athletes, including Allison Felix, the most decorated female track and field athlete in history. Why? Quite simply because it was the only opportunity for her to find an indoor track like that on the West Coast. From the sport of track and field, this facility will be a game changer for our community, and I strongly endorse moving it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil, do we have anyone else?
Let's just give me a moment and I'll check
All
with
right.
EJ to see if we have anyone else.
Okay.
At this time, I do not show anyone else in our chat box.
Okay. That appears to be everyone.
All righty. Correspondence, Neil?
I don't see any correspondence, nor do I have a note on business from staff.
Okay. Next item.
Any report from the chair?
No.
Any committee reports?
No.
Then our next item would be new business. Item number 1, North Glenwood real property request. Nancy Newton and Mary Bridget Smith are here for the staff report.
Thank you.
Good evening, SEDA board. This is Mary Bridget Smith presenting on behalf of staff. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. We're here tonight to formally restart the conversation that the board had on March 9th to discuss SEDC's request to locate the indoor track and event facility on SEDA's property in Glenwood. What I'd like to do tonight is provide you with a brief status update, an explanation of the exhibits that were included in your packet, and then leave the remainder for your discussion. As I said on March 9th, the SEDA board met. They gave direction to staff to move forward with the request by seeing if they could come to an agreement with SEDC that would move the project forward, but still give SEDA some flexibility. Participate in design and site meetings that SEDC was having with their architect and construction company, and then begin to approach adjacent property owners about potential cooperation. This occurred shortly before the COVID pandemic came to our area, and we began to focus our efforts on our response. So we have not we have not approached the adjacent property owners, done some preliminary work on an agreement, and then it's my understanding that SEDC had suspended their meetings, their site design meetings for a little bit of time, but those have resumed. In the last few months, SEDC has continued to move the project forward. I think they adjusted their timeline, obviously, when the track events were delayed due to COVID, but they are still moving forward with the project and would like us to consider their request. Turning to the exhibits in your packet, we wanted to give you some exhibits so you could have something to react to, so you could actually see what some of these documents would look like. So the first one is a draft resolution publicly supporting the project. The second exhibit is a template for a real property option. This is it would be an agreement between SEDC and the SEDA board to essentially tie the property up for a number of months while they're doing the due diligence about the site, and then agreeing then to convey it in some manner to SEDC once that due diligence period is over. The other last exhibit is Willamelane's resolution. That was adopted on March 11th, was just a couple days after the SEDA board met, so you hadn't had a chance to see that, so we wanted to include that in the packet as well. And then there's just a property diagram. So I am happy to answer any questions you may have or just listen to your discussion.
Leonard, then Sherry.
Thanks. I know when we had discussed this previously at other meetings of the SEDA board that I had requested that staff consider and study the economic impact on the residents of Glenwood of this project, specifically what cost of living might be and what the cost of the property would be after this development came in. Has anything been done along those lines?
No, nothing's been done along those lines yet.
Okay. I've got to say that I have a lot of hesitation about supporting the project going forward without any kind of hard figures about how this would affect the residents of Glenwood. That's all I got.
Sherry? Unmute. Unmute.
You told me, sorry. I have several questions, and a lot of them have to do with some of the terminology that's used in the financial impact, the discussion that's right at the first page. One of the questions was, branding work is being done in collaboration with AHM, and my question was, who and what is AHM?
AHM is a local firm. I don't know honestly what it stands for, but they do marketing and public relations, and they've been working with SEDC.
So that work has begun?
Yes, that work has begun. That work is focused on branding for the event. And
okay.
it has started, yes.
Okay, so then the next sentence talks about fundraising aspects of this point, at this point. And so I'd like to know how much money, if that's a fair question to be asked, has been raised, has been donated. I know how much the city, well, I don't know how much the city has donated. I have an idea of some of the money that's been donated. I know Carrie had mentioned that Travel County had given $10,000. So I was just wondering if I could have an amount of money that has been donated to the SCDC to this point.
So, I don't have that figure, board member Moore, but I believe board member Lundberg might.
Christine?
Well, what I want to say is part of the issue around the point we're at is to put together the materials we need to begin a fundraising effort, because the site has been a pivotal piece of the work that needs to be completed. So without talking specifically about the dollars that are within a nonprofit, there's just a lot of work that has to be done. So I don't know what the number is off the top of my head.
Okay, so I asked because at the meeting, I believe it was, I went back and listened to our, when we were evaluating all the different projects and, you know, how we would look at them as far as the conference and different things. One of the things that I think it was Councilor Woodrow talked about was the great community support there was for this project and how disappointed they would be if we didn't come through. And I thought, well, and my question at that time is, where's the money coming from? Funding issues, I kept bringing that up as I went back and listened to what we'd said. And so I'm saying, you know, community's response, where is that response? I have not personally received a tremendous amount of emails. I mean, we talked about body cameras not too long ago for the police department, and I was overwhelmed with emails. I have not been overwhelmed with emails or any kind of contact from the public related to this particular project. And I thought, well, money might be an indicator of what kind of response we've had from the public. And so that was why I was asking. going on through, it said that Willamette Lane had undertook an internal SWOT, and I had to call Nancy and say, what in the world is SWOT? Because I didn't know. And she indicated to me that it was strengths, it represents strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats or issues with the project. And so Willamette Lane apparently took time to go through, and it was kind of like a sounding board session where if you're going to do something, you talk about the pros and cons. And as a SEDA board, we have not taken the time to actually go through and do that kind of a listing. And I would be interested, that would be one of my interests in seeing before we actually take a vote, that I see this all kind of laid out, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then also it indicated that Willamette Lane had done a pro forma, and I believe I asked for that. This was from March 9th. It was requested that we get more information of that pro forma, a copy of that. It was done by, I can't remember the group. Oh, it was done by the Sports Facilities Advisory. And so that's something else that I personally, as a board member, SEDA board member, would like to see. And then I had another question about the request. When we evaluated the request, it said that we would participate in the pre-design. That was on March 9th, 2020. And investigate financial impacts and reach out to adjacent property owners. I realized that Mary Bridget just spoke about that. We haven't been able, because of the COVID-19, to follow through with a lot of those things, but I'm still there. That's still what I would like to see before I go into a formal agreement, this resolution that we're looking at. And then another thing that I'm interested in is the cost as far as lost revenue related to a nonprofit owning this property, or we're giving up a $6 million property, and what is the benefit to us? So looking at what is the potential lost revenue from property tax, room tax, from, in fact, if there was something else that would go there, and then realizing that there is a lot of cost that's going to be required of infrastructure for this particular thing to happen. And I am assuming that the city would be paying for that, as well as anytime we would have a developer come in, there's traffic studies, there are environmental impact studies, the changes to the refinement plan, that would all be paid for by a developer. And so my question is, in fact, I would want it, it's something that I think that as a city we need to consider, because if we're looking at being involved with a nonprofit in doing this, how much of that cost are we as a city going to bear? And I'll stop for right now. I could rattle on a while longer, but I'll stop there.
I'd like to bring us back to where we need to be when we get to the end of the meeting tonight. Mary Bridget, would you like to describe, or would you like me to describe where we would like to be when we get to the end of the meeting tonight?
I can give it a shot and then see if that's sufficient. So tonight, staff is looking for guidance and direction from the board of whether they would like to move forward with a resolution or a real property option affirming that they are interested in having the track be located on the North Glenwood property. Part of that agreement would include participating in the due diligence, approaching adjacent property owners, and answering some of the questions that board member Moore has. Or if the SEDA board would not like to move forward, and then we can let SCDC know so they can make other plans.
Sean,
You're missing. Hang on just a second, Sean. Christine's been trying to ask questions for quite a while now.
oh, I can't see her.
Right, so you'll need to say something, Christine.
Oh, yeah, you need to switch whoever's controlling the thing is switched so, you know, the right people are up on Marilee's screen.
Because I can't see Christine
Yeah,
at
see,
all.
I see me, so I think you're seeing me. So yeah, whoever's controlling the screen, fix it.
How do you look, Mayor?
I can see. Yeah, I can see everybody on my screen, Marilee. So I'll holler if someone's waving her hand, but she's been waving her hand for quite a while.
Sean, I'm going to take Christine first.
Okay,
Christine.
So I want to address just a couple of things because, you know, we're approaching this like we've never done anything like this before, or that, you know, a conference center was, you know, everybody was all over that when we're talking conference center, but the bottom line was the city was going to own that. And that was going to be a 10-year deal before anybody was going to be able to take it over. So the city was physically going to own a conference center, which is the same as a nonprofit. There was, you know, we started out with support from the council. We had support. It's only in the recent past that support has somehow or another shifted off of the support part, where, you know, what the council has prioritized this. So where that came from is, you know, is a little disingenuous. And there's been no discussion about giving up the property. So I don't know where that, you know, that's not true either. Infrastructure is something that we're going to discuss with a lot of people. Oh, okay. So now I don't see anybody. Okay. And
me either.
So,
I'm not seeing anyone.
Oh, so I'll turn my camera on, but then again, I don't know who's going to show up. Anyway,
There you are.
Yeah, okay.
So
anyway, and when it comes to monies, first off, you know, all the discussions we've had around money is we need a site. So the Economic Development Administration at the federal level is very interested in talking to us. They love the project, but they need to know we have a site secured. So that's really important for that. That's a lot of potential money for us. So that's one thing. And then Chambers Construction has donated in kind 75,000. Pivot Architecture has donated 50,000. And so far AHM has been working with us in a pro bono basis also. So we have secured significant help from very reputable organizations and agencies that are helping us do this work. And they have done it all with a dollar figure in mind. So it's not as if we don't have support that's coming in that equates to dollars that then can be in kind that would go into a grant application. So we are well poised to be talking about funding, except that we need to have a site secured.
Right now, I can only see 4 people. So if somebody wants to speak, why you're gonna have to holler at me.
Sure. I mean, Marilee.
Yes.
I think everybody needs to reactivate their cameras. Yeah, there's one more.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
Okay.
It was a split in the signal, but so everybody should reactivate everything just like they just came on.
Okay. Okay. So Sean?
Yeah. So thanks. And I think there's a really good point that the mayor made, which was like, as a body, we keep saying we want to go forward here, and we voted, like, we put money in the budget multiple times, we prioritized, and that's been pretty much a 6-0 decision up until this last budget for over a couple of years to say that this is pretty important. And I just want to recognize we're stuck in sort of a chicken and the egg thing, right? Like, at a point, like, to get some of the answers to the questions that people are looking for, right? We've got to make some sort, we've got to decide that we want to go forward to give people enough direction to go back and, put the numbers together, provide the designs. I actually love the project. It's captured my imagination about where that bend in the river is, because I think great places have a scene and a story to them. But like, as a body, we sort of have to take a collective risk here to say, when you've got the chamber involved, when you've got Tracktown involved, when you've got Travel Lane County involved, there's a lot of great people involved in this project. And I think it's important for us to say, okay, let's give them the space to work the site and see what they come up with.
Thank you. Sherry?
So there was a request on March 9th, 2020. SCDC is asking that SEDA donate or sell the property for a nominal amount. That caught my attention then. It catches my attention now.
Sean?
Hey, so Sherry, I know we're working through the details, but sometimes when you brought up the SWOT, the SWOT is actually a good format for pluses and minuses. Is there actually something you like about the project?
May I answer that?
It wasn't rhetorical.
Okay. Well, yes, I do like the idea of a facility that would accommodate more than just track. And I know we've talked about that in an event center. My concern comes down to what is the city how are we going to benefit from this? If we end up donating a $6 million property and paying for a whole lot of infrastructure and just a lot of cost involved in developing this, which I assume that SCDC isn't going to have the money to do. Maybe they will, but possibly they won't. We are not going to gain any property taxes. We are not going to gain any room taxes. And we owe the people of the businesses in Glenwood, the SEDA bought that property. We have a lot of money invested in it. And I'm just concerned about going forward. If we want to do give them 90 days to come up with $6 million to buy the property, hey, I have no problem with that necessarily, although I think it could be used for other things.
Christine? Your microphone.
When Courtney was presenting even private development, that one, it was going to take a long time. Two, that infrastructure was going to cost money and the developer wasn't necessarily going to be paying for that. And I remember the term she used. She said the city is going to be investing a lot of money into this project. So it doesn't matter whether it's private, whether it's nonprofit. This kind of a project now is seen as the future for projects like sports, combining events, etc. You don't build two different buildings. You can build one building. And there is a great deal of interest for development around the center. So it has all of the opportunities to make money and more, perhaps, than if we just did private development that looks like every other private development that's even near in Eugene. So it's not even that far away. This would be a facility that's right on I-5 that is in Tracktown country, which means that there are people that are going to want to be there. It's on a location that is one that is going to be all by itself, individual. So it has that opportunity to do all kinds of things for the community and be for the community where kids can use it. That it was actually someone who's a property owner nearby sent us an article that said that this is the kind of facility that is the future for sports and for events. So they're very excited about it too. And I was in a meeting when JT was still here, and we were trying to pitch putting the softball field for the U of O girls teams along the riverfront, because I remember thinking, are they going to hit the balls out into the river? And so this is not a new concept, even for the city, is to look at this kind of a facility. So having been even in that, and that was still at the point where the U of O didn't want to put something in Springfield. So we fight that uphill battle, but this is something that even the U of O is very, very excited about. There's a long list of supporters that come with this, a long list of sports people that want to be with it. And we have been out and presented this out into the community quite a bit already. And the only reason that it doesn't have some of the public input right now is because we had to table our survey that we're putting out because we had COVID, and we decided that it wasn't good timing to try and talk to the public right now about anything that's going on. It wouldn't match our telephone survey. So it was supposed to be in that survey, and that's had to be pushed out a little bit. So all of those boxes have been checked, and still we have a ton of support that's out there. And there isn't any reason why we can't work something out in terms of how we would do a financing plan for this, because that's what we did. I mean, we bought the land, built the building for the National Guard Armory to their specs, and they got to lease it for 10 years. Then they bought it from us. So, we have all kinds of models that have worked in the past. And so not to see this as something that is bound by one configuration. It can be done in a lot of ways that benefits everybody. And then at the end of the day, it's going to be just the stellar place, and it's going to be known all over the world.
Sherry?
Christine, I know very well that you're very supportive of it. I mean, you're on the, are you on the board of directors of this Springfield Community Development Corporation? And what position do you have on the Springfield Community Development Corporation?
You already know, Sherry.
What?
I thought you already knew that.
Yeah.
I'm asking, this is a public meeting, Joe Pishneri. Some of the public don't know, and so I'm asking, because there was a letter from the Springfield Community Development Corporation on February 20th, 2020 to us, and the vice president, the treasurer, and the secretary signed the letter. The president didn't sign the letter. I assume the president is you, Christine. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And so obviously you are very enthusiastic about this project. And so one of my thoughts was, in voting to go forward on this project, it seems to me as if maybe you should consider not voting, or accusing yourself from voting, since you have not a vested interest in financially, but certainly a vested interest in this going forward. That's my comment.
Mary Bridget.
So if the question is whether it's appropriate for a counselor to participate in this process when they're a member of SEDC, that's always up to the individual if they want to recuse themselves. In terms of public ethics laws, board member Lumberg is not personally have any financial stake in this project. She can be a member of a nonprofit that then will have interactions with the city. For example, over the years, council members have been members of organizations like SRDC or Rotary or other organizations that then have had dealings in both with the city. So it should not be a public official ethics situation, but is fine with each individual board member how they want to approach it.
Sherry?
And another question was brought up, it was mentioned, why are we questioning this now? And so, as I said, I went back and listened to when we were prioritizing what we were going to do going forward. And at that time, if I can find my notes on that, I brought up the fact of where is money coming from, funding issues, I was, you know, at that time, I was concerned about and asking about the funding. And that was quite some time ago. That was for April 22nd, 2019. So it's not as if this is a new issue for me. This has been the issue all along.
Sean?
All right, but you have voted to allocate money to explore this project multiple times, and you have voted to make sure that on that priority list, right? So like, I know that question's come up a lot, and I don't mean to sort of rake you over the coals here, but like, you voted to explore this project. But I think when I just sort of back up and I hear this for a second, I think the choices, you know, the questions you ask are through the window that we're talking about going, right? Like, once this group's got a sense of the site, once, you know, people like, you know, that are sitting on this board have a sense of the site, then they can actually design this into an actual project. So I mean, that's the key portion. This isn't like, when I hear the conversation in the community and I hear the conversation in political campaigns, sometimes it sounds like people think this is the, you know, beginning of the end, right? No, this is more like the end of the beginning, and we just have to work our, like, once we get the answer here, then we're going to continue to get more information back and start that process. You're like, if we follow what your plan is, we're just going to slow this whole thing down, and nothing's going to get built there, and nothing's going to, like, from a resident's perspective, then there's no benefit to anybody.
I want to step in here for just a second. We're not putting design plans and money and everything in a format tonight to say yes or no. We're looking at the next step. And the next step is to say, yes, we'd like to see this happen, but we need to make a commitment to say, yes, this is what we want to happen, so that we have people who are interested will go ahead and invest their time, invest their money, invest their resources to be able to figure out whether it is a complete project to get done. It's kind of like putting an option on a piece of real estate. You put it on hold for 6 months while you figure out whether it's going to work or not. It's similar to something like that. I gave the analogy to someone I was talking to today and said, this is like our being in a baseball game. And we've got SEDC, we've got SEDA, we got everybody in the outfield. We got the group coming up to bat, and we're waiting for the ball to be pitched. We can't do anything until that ball comes to the plate, and we either hit it out for an out or we hit it out for a home run. But until that ball gets to us, we can't do anything. And we're sitting here looking at a piece of paper tonight that says, and we can figure out what the options are that we want on it. We're not tied into anything that's on that form that Mary Bridget gave us, and there were 2 or 3 versions. We get to be flexible to figure out what we want in that form in order for us to look at it and say, yes, we want to go forward, or no, we don't. But we're going around in circles at the moment, and we're going to end up looking like a Tasmanian devil by the time we get done, and we're not going to be able to land anywhere. So I just, I'm looking at bringing us back into saying we can't answer those questions. My personal opinion, we can't answer some of those questions, which are good questions, by the way, but we can't answer them until we take the next step that says, yes, we want to make that commitment to find out where we're going with it. Leonard, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Marilee.
I got you, Joe.
Hold on a second. No, you missed Joe first. It was Joe, Leonard, then Steve.
Okay, I cannot see Joe or Steve. So
that's why I'm helping you.
Thank you.
I yield the floor.
No, go ahead. As long as you know I'm in the queue, I'll go after Steve, Marilee. Thank you so much.
Okay, Leonard.
Okay, thank you, Marilee. I think what we have done in the past when we have voted to move forward with this was further to research and investigate the feasibility of the project. I don't think that it was in any sense a blanket endorsement of the project. We had okayed the possibility of looking at the project in the future. I think that Sherry is raising questions that we still have not had answered, And I know that I've asked for the answers to some things that are still up in the air. So I think that right now it would be premature for us to vote on this up or down. That's my input.
Steve?
Now,
Your microphone?
I'm unmuted now. Okay, as you all know, I speak very little, and sometimes like this, I prepare my comments. I've got about 2 pages here I'd like to read, and then we'll see what happens. Running for council, I knew I would be a counselor for all of Springfield and would have Ward 2 as my specialty area. Glenwood is in Ward 2. I didn't come with a Glenwood agenda. Turns out Glenwood has been ignored, and it turns out it's the area that needs the most work. It's my job to bring that to the council's attention and ask that they help me to turn Glenwood into what everybody has envisioned it to be. For years, it's been on the top of the list to turn the diamond in the rough into what it should be. I know that will be a problem, as all the councilors support the revitalization of Glenwood. The urban renewal plan is in place for the Glenwood citizens, businesses, and property owners to put money into a Glenwood urban renewal piggy bank and trust us to make the right decisions. We have been neglectful in doing that. Urban renewal allows us to assist in activities for the elimination of slum and blighted conditions, improve the environment to encourage businesses to grow, build, relocate, and also to build low-income housing and apartments. Do the right thing that will make the people live in Glenwood proud of the community and make Springfielders that drive through also proud. We haven't started, it's been 15 years. The Ramsey Wake purchase was to secure prime riverfront property to encourage hotels, restaurants, apartments, condos, and maybe a conference center. There have been attempts to bring in developers, and most inquiries have been discouraged. The indoor track is a wonderful concept, but it has options for a location ran out if we decided to build on the Ramsey Wake purchase. The citizens that paid for that property have no idea what is proposed, and we have not reached out to the taxpayers or citizens of Springfield to see if there's any support for this venture. Most of them have no idea what is proposed. We counselors are supposed to represent the public, and we need to find out if there's support or not so we can represent them properly. I ran a few numbers the other day and was very surprised. I know somebody owns a building in Glenwood, taxable value of $270,000, pays property taxes of $5,000, so I did some math, and a tax rate of 0.0204. If a private tax-paying development were to build a $50 million facility, the property taxes generated would be $1,020,000 annually. If it's $100 million, it'd be twice that. That's a lot of tax dollars. A nonprofit would generate no tax revenue for the city of Springfield. I know the argument is that the indoor track will attract developers and they will pay property taxes. With the recession, nobody will want to build an indoor track for 10 years. My opinion, of course. It's been talked about for over 2 years. Why have there not been significant financial donors? How long should we wait for development in Glenwood? When was the last time we truly tried to attract a developer to this property, if ever, to build a mixed-use development that would be used every day by multiple Glenwood, Springfield, and Eugene residents? Mixed-use development through a partnership with SEDA and a private developer is the best way to quickly have an impact on reducing blight in Glenwood. I also looked at the Ramsey Wake building, and so I had some questions on it. The Ramsey Wake has a large commercial, very modern building. Is that part of the SEDA purchase? If so, will that be part of the property we give to the nonprofit? What will they do with it? Leave it empty, adding to the empty storefront blight? Will they demolish it, or will they rent it out until they need the whole property? It's about a $750,000 building. I know of a similar sized building, older, but pays a rent of $4,500 a month plus $5,000 property taxes. If SEDA continues to own this building, SEDA gets the rent. If the nonprofit owns the building, they'll probably get the rent payment at $4,500 a month. That would be $270,000 over 5 years. That income should go to SEDA to reinvest in Glenwood. I love Springfield. Springfield and downtown are linked. They are not divided by a river. They are united by a river. Thank you.
Joe.
Smart money is not weighing in on this, but forgive me for joking. First, I want to say that every time a legitimate partnership request hits the Board of Commissioners, I have and will always be a champion of Springfield. And actually, one of you who's a good friend helped sort of counsel me to stay out of the weeds and take that kind of position. We're not close to that on this yet. But one of the reasons, very different from the input heard thus far, one of the reasons I've reflected a lot on this, and I didn't until recently realize this was even controversial, and it is, and I'm even feeling that in the discussion here. So as I weigh in, and I just call it as I see it, I'm doing it out of a sense of conscience and integrity. And if my position is any way unpopular with any of my friends here, I apologize. But I need to let you know what I see. Because first I need to say, I think there's something inherently wrong for me, not for anyone else, but for me to be a part of, because I was on the SCDC. Well, I was on the board before it became SCDC. I was invited by Mayor Lundberg. And right now, I've gotten off of that board because I think there's something inherently wrong with being on the group making the ask and at the same time on the group receiving the ask. And that's really what's been getting in my soul, and I've lost sleep over. And I think that's especially true with an ask the size of this, because it is a $6 million request, the value of it. It wasn't easy for me to leave that indoor track board. Unbelievably great group of people. Greg James, if there's ever a project like this, you want Greg to be your guy. And the same with Carrie, and the same with everyone. And I totally support community groups going for it like this one is. But, and here's the but, because really the issue we're talking about, in a sense, is do we lock up this land for an unknown amount of time, and what is the opportunity cost of doing that? That is ultimately, if you forget what hat you're wearing and what political stuff you bring to the table and how hard you've been working on this, that's the question for the SEDA board. What's the opportunity cost? When I was asked to join the track board, things were very, very different. I was asked to help the county move, to see if the county would move the Glenwood transfer station to Short Mountain. And I saw a win-win opportunity immediately. And I want to share that with you. The win-win, I was able to advance a vision of more megawatts of clean energy being produced at Short Mountain and significantly massive recycling occurring at Short Mountain, creating jobs. I was able to secure a multi-million-dollar commitment from a private party who agreed to underwrite the cost of building that industrial facility if the county could have it served by water and sewer. Right now, water and sewer has been approved to be brought to Short Mountain for that. All this related to the indoor track. It's being brought to Short Mountain. The County Board of Commissioners is having it stubbed off at Goshen so that there's the potential for development of the Goshen industrial area. All that's happened. And all that to me makes good business sense. But now, siting for the indoor track, which is my only issue, is siting. And I've made that clear. Siting for the indoor track has changed, and to me, this is not a good site. And I apologize for those proponents. I'm a proponent, but this site, think about it. This site is in a designated urban renewal zone and in a new thing called an opportunity zone by the new tax code. And these are designed to attract and incent private development and increase the property tax base of our community. That's what they're for. And to create jobs, Springfield jobs. So I don't see how those community goals are being advanced by this particular location. And understand, as someone who loves SCDC, objectively, as a past real estate developer, to me it makes no business sense to give a $6 million asset to a group that doesn't have the capacity and has no project track record, and no pun intended, but it's a new group. It doesn't have that stability I would look for when loaning money or looking at project finance. The other concern of mine is if we make this gift now or move forward on saying we want to make it, it effectively freezes our ability to use this asset to attract private investment to that area. I remember when we as the SEDA board were given a report from a consultant that was hired before I got here, and that consultant described for us the characteristics of the ideal anchor tenant to bring in more business to Glenwood, to this part of Glenwood. And an entity that won't pay property taxes and needs to raise $60 million in a COVID and post-COVID environment was not the profile that we got. So what I see is that SEDA is not driving to make this decision. The group, the indoor track group, is. Part of it relates to a grant and being able to raise money, and I understand that. But that to me is a little bit like the tail wagging the dog. When you like what Steve Moe said in terms of the opportunity for massive private investment, and this being a good chunk of the land that's an opportunity for. So an indoor facility doesn't have to be placed on land designated for a different purpose that's trying to increase our tax base, et cetera. So I view this request as a public subsidy approach to developing those parcels, not a market-driven approach. And this isn't tense or nervous or controversial to me. I just see we have the opportunity. And by the way, if you want to talk about how you attract opportunity zone investors and funds to an area, I would love to talk about that, because this community has not yet seriously and professionally attempted to do that. So I think you get my drift. I am for this project. I can't wait to, once again, if they'll have me, be on the SCDC board. I just think the opportunity cost of this particular parcel makes no sense to me.
Any comments? Anybody else? I'm not seeing
I feel like I should
everybody's camera.
apologize.
I thought Tish was next.
Pardon?
I thought Tish was next. Wasn't he in the queue?
Were you in the queue, Joe P?
No, I've been quietly listening, actually.
Okay.
Maybe I can offer a suggestion forward. Is like we got to figure out a way to kind of work our way through this, and essentially we're looking at a blank canvas. So why don't we just go back to the same, a similar put a similar deal on the table that looks and feels like what we were talking about with the conference center, which was the city would own it for 10 years and then enter in negotiations about final ownership for it. That was what we would do with a private investor.
Right. Well, yes, and I just wanted to respond to Joe just for a second. This property's been sitting there for a while. So has other opportunities in Glenwood, and nobody stepped forward with a proposal or with an idea as to what they want, something that they want to put where. This is the first proposal that actually has feet to it, and it needs to get serious consideration. The feasibility study was done on behalf of Willamette. We got a report on that, or reference to that by the letter we got from Michael and Greg, and so there have been parties that have taken it upon themselves to do a study and to look into this in a serious way. And so, yeah, Sean, that's a good comment. Christine, did you have your hand up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sherry.
No, Joe had his up, Marilee.
Bernie.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Chair. I can't
see you. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry, you're not missing anything. I just wanted to say that in an earlier SEDA meeting, actually, we learned that no RFQ was sent to developers, and we learned that from Mary Bridget, and I believe I asked the question because I was told when I brought a company that actually was fascinated with this area, that was going to occur. So I don't think, I just wanted to point that out. Thank you very much. And whatever we do, I'm going to suggest, it's obvious this has a lot of angst attached to it. And so, I mean, I feel bad saying this because I know how diligently the mayor and others have been working on this. And again, I support SEDC and the project. It's the location. So I think it's kind of important, and I presume we're going to have some motion on the table and vote on it.
We're working our way to a direction. We haven't gotten there yet. Sherry?
So another question I had related to this resolution will not last as long as the due diligence period. And I read earlier that SCDC anticipates that the due diligence period will be complete October 31st, 2020. So are they going to, I mean, are they going to be able to answer all of the questions that we have brought up by October 31st, 2020? Is that what I'm understanding?
Councilor, Board Member Moore, I drafted in the October date, knowing that, and we'd have to confirm that with SCDC, but I do know that they are working with Chambers and Pivot for a certain amount of time. I think it was 90 days, but that schedule got messed up because of the COVID response. But I know they are doing some work on the investigating the sites and the due diligence. So I tried to think of a time frame that would allow enough time for them to get that work done. And that could be something that we could nail down with them. And then also if there are other questions that the SEDA board had, that maybe we could use that time to investigate some of those issues as well. So that was really just one approach to go on the resolution, as opposed to just having an open-ended resolution that didn't have a end to it in terms of the due diligence.
Okay, so then a further question I have, Joe B brought up the transfer site as was potentially looked at as a site. What is that still potentially a site for this track, indoor track? I'm asking Joe, I guess, or whoever.
Christine?
I'll follow Christine. Yeah.
My understanding was it was going to be at least 10 years. And part of that was there was going to have to be an investment in on and off ramps to get to the other site. And I think was part of an email chain that said Eugene and Springfield should pitch in for those on and off ramps off the freeway. So to move that, so that really became a non-issue. We tried to put the track on the site around the transfer portion period where maybe it would fit, but it happens to be right under power lines. So it did not work because the track would have had to sit right under the power line. So it's not as if this is the only site. This is at least the 5th site that has been worked out. We did have another site. It had 3 property owners, and one decided they couldn't do it. So we had the whole track sitting on it. So, but that's fine. You know, we have vetted several sites very carefully, and this is the one that, you know, would accommodate the track. It was in the original list, and I met with every counselor. Those rectangles were on top of the property we're talking about tonight, even at the beginning. So going through the list of properties, this was one of the properties, and we have vetted, as I say, at least 5 other sites for timing, for work, for hazard, for whatever. So the transfer site just had such a long time frame with a lot of unknowns and variables about even being able to do that.
May I add, Chair?
Joe?
Yeah, 100% what the mayor said is correct. my point was just when I came on, it was looking at a different site, because my concern isn't with the project, it's with the location, given the opportunity cost of forfeiting that location for what could be. But Sherry, the mayor's 1000% correct. That's the process. It would take that long. So I didn't want to disagree with that. I wanted to share a couple of things. One is one of my past business colleagues lives in Sacramento. Sacramento just had an experience where the nonprofit they gave parcels of land to for something, I don't know what, was unable to raise the money in 2 years. And part of the agreement was that if they couldn't raise the money, have the capital stack in place with construction starting in that period, or a period, I don't know what it was, that the property would revert back to the city. And now the city of Sacramento has accepted 2 parcels. So I just want to make, if you think about it, I want everybody to win here, and I don't want any entity to walk off with incorrect expectations and invest a lot of time and energy for nothing. And I think it's just really important. Obviously, I've made it clear how I feel about the location, even though I'm for the indoor track and event center. But I do think it's important to have something with a lot more terms, conditions, and time frame than what we have in front of us as a draft document, if it moved forward.
Sean.
I mean, and there's another option that it sounds like we could get around to, is like the Abe Farkas thing was like a 3-year thing before we got any results from it. Is maybe we enter the approach we take is we tie it up for 2 years, have the plan to revert if they don't if we don't get to a yes here. I mean, there's lots of ways to get to a yes and get to that sort of next stage. It just depends on where people's comfort level is.
Just to interject quickly, if you look at Willamelane's board resolution, they had a similar requirements in their resolution that the fundraising had to happen. I think it was in construction complete by 2025. That was for them to agree to be the operator. That was only one of their conditions. And I think other entities have done similar things. So it could be something that if the board is willing to move forward, we can negotiate some terms that would have either fundraising milestones, or like what Commissioner Bernie's talking about, raising a certain amount of funds within a certain time, or the property reverts back, or other. I think there are a couple issues. Does the property work? And then if the property works, how can we structure the deal to make it a good transaction for everyone?
Christine?
So SCDC has very similar kind of documents that even are working with Chambers and with Pivot, because they have specific timeframes too, because they have made commitments of in-kind dollars. And so they have milestones that need to be met too. So even well-respected companies like Chambers and or not AHM, but Pivot, they recognize that it's a project that needs to gain some momentum and be able to move forward, and we need their help to do that. But since they're well-respected companies, they don't make decisions based on a whim. They made very solid decisions, and we have very specific contract requirements with them. So I'm looking at them that they believe in us.
And just to follow up, another condition from Willamalane was the public survey by the end of December 2020 was another milestone. Just thinking of conditions.
And that was to be done by an independent third party. Is that correct, Mary Bridget?
Yeah, if you look. Sorry, I just had a kid. If you look at the resolution, they are asking that it be done by an independent entity, but in collaboration, I believe, with the city and Willamalane and SEDC, and then shared with the Willamalane board by the end of 2020.
Right. Sherry.
Then Joe.
Thank you.
That's another issue I have with going forward at this point in time. it's really difficult for the public to participate in these meetings. I mean, if we were having this in the council chambers and it was well publicized and the public wanted to come forward, it would be much easier for them to come to a public meeting than it is to come online and to speak prior to the discussion that we're having here even. And one of the requests was that we have a public forum, which to me makes a little more sense even than having a survey. Sometimes surveys can be a bit misleading, and so inviting the public to participate in a public forum. I agree with what Joe B is saying about the project itself has a lot to be commended as far as an event center, as far as what it could do for Springfield and for the region. I also am aware that the state is in a really rough place right now as far as giving grant money for some kind of a project like this. Nobody has any money and nobody knows where this is going to end or if it's going to end, because after this virus is conquered, if and when it is, there could be another virus. I mean, we have no idea that we're ever going to be able to get 5,000 people together in a event center, in the future. I mean, it just seems to me that the timing is not very good to go forward. Not that I don't think it could be a really great project, because I agree with Joe that it could be. I also agree that that particular piece of land is not necessarily one that I want to see tied up for a couple of years while this Springfield Community Development Corporation tries to get their act together and money and etc.
Joe B, and then Sean.
I know a guy. I mean, I do. I know a guy that that in a relatively short period of time, if this body was interested, could establish a request for information to some of the major opportunity funds that are looking for places like this in communities, that could use that to filter those that are really interested, that could then, through our request for information process, that could then help staff with a request for qualification process around things like, housing and hotels and retail and multi-use. Those kinds of people want the biggest portion of land they can get, and the land we have is very desirable, but not that big for these guys. So I know a guy that could offer that help if we wanted it. The thing that is cool to me is all that could be done within a short period of time where all of the conditions of Willamette could be met, right? I mean, 6 or 7 months. And even though I appreciate SCDC as an entity needing to raise money against something, the fact is, wearing the SEDA hat, we could meet that October-November timeframe before we enter into any agreement, not the one in front of us, not any agreement, but also agree not to enter into an agreement with anyone else, go through the process, check all the boxes, use this guy to see if there are people that would be interested here, and move on and not affect the time frame before us one iota.
Sean?
I would just offer that, I know that 2020 has been a unique set of challenges for all of us. And like the way that I think, we're thinking a couple of years out and it's sort of strategic. And I got some good advice recently when somebody told me that they chose not to live their life in a state of fragile crisis, right? We got to work our way through this as a community. And like, I'm still in the sense of, look, if there's some concerns and we can get behind, like if we could get behind, let's tie this up for like a little bit of time. It's not like the economy is super hot right now anyway, and give these guys some time to work this. And then, if that sort of deliverable happens, then we've got a way forward.
Joe P.
So yeah, thank you. So I'm kind of looking at this is that I guess we live in a subduction zone and we should quit building today, quit everything, because we could crash because of an earthquake. I don't believe we should do that. I think we should move forward and live the best we can and build the best we can and have a best community. So I don't believe in the dark clouds. I also do believe that when citizens don't like something that or want us to do something that they think we're going to do, like it was quoted earlier, that we got hundreds of emails for people saying, don't do this. I haven't gotten a single email in opposition of this project, not a single one, but I've gotten several that are, well, I should say, I've gotten one in opposition. I've gotten several, like the rest of you, that are supportive of it. There is people that are very intelligent. They know what they're doing. It's a great group of people. It's agencies, it's individuals, it's companies that have got this ahead of them and saying this, we can make work. So I think, and as a group, the 6 of us already said this is a priority project from the council, and we made it top of the list. And now we're talking about possibly not. I don't get it. So, I mean, I've made a commitment. I'm willing to push. I think it's a smart thing to do. I think it's the best thing for the community. And frankly, if we wait around, I think even Joe B would agree that commercial property is not going to be real hot item for the next couple of years. And I think that this is something that would be a different market, and I think it would be attractive, and I think it'd be great for the community. So I support it. I think we need to move forward, and I do support Joe's idea that he brought up that it says, you know, we look at it. So what about reversion back 3 or 4 years from now? Say, hey, if you can't go, it reverts back to us. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's smart. I think that's also being good stewards of the money. So I support this, and I want to move forward with this resolution.
Thanks, Joe. I just wanted to add 2 cents in here too, that even though Joe might have a guy, and I'm not being nasty about that, we have a SCDC board full of people who have been involved in projects and in things like this for years, who have years and years of experience, and we need to respect the expertise and the professionalism on the behalf of those people that are on that board. They haven't been mentioned tonight, but they wouldn't be here with the project in hand and wanting to and asking to move forward if they weren't the quality of people that they are. So I just think we need to make sure that we recognize them and respect them for what they've contributed to this point.
So it was Steve and then Joe, Marilee.
Steve, thanks, Joe.
All of those that have come forth in support of this all have a vested interest in athletics or even economic future in this, like the builders and we haven't reached out to the real public, the general public, and asked them what they would support. We need to do that.
Joe B.
Heck, I think you know how I feel. Although I would like to say that I did mention SCDC. I mentioned a couple of the people by name. Outstanding group of people. Again, my opinion relates to the site, not to that body. I agree with Sean, by the way. We got to live our life. We got to move forward. A little information about the commercial market. Yes, in fact, expect to see a significant recession within commercial real estate activity as we move out of this. But when we talk about opportunity zone funds, actually, they are glutted with resource and don't have enough sites right now. And it would be good to work with them.
Do I have anybody that wants to come up with a potential proposal or potential format for how we could look at, as Sean suggested, the flexibility in a resolution that would put us in a position of where, yes, we want to get to this point, but if nothing happens at this point, then we revert. Leonard, then Sean.
I'd like, prior to coming up with a new proposal, I'd like to have an up or down vote on the current proposal in front of us.
Well, we've got a few of them.
All right.
Mary Bridget gave us 2 or 3 different versions.
Okay, I think the thing that we need to vote on, and what I thought we were going to be considering tonight, was the okay to give the go ahead to staff to draw up papers on a vote to donate the property on
No.
riverfront.
It
No?
wasn't that detailed. No, not at all. It wasn't that detailed. It was to move forward to get us to that point, which would be later. But it's where we are now is to just get us to that point, to approve and support what will get us to that point. Sean?
I think Sherry was first.
Oh, Sherry?
So I agree with Leonard in that I'm seeing the resolution that was being proposed, and if we were to go forward with this resolution, I would see that I would want to add a placeholder for inserting some, other conditions, that kind of thing. But at this point, I'm wondering if we even have enough votes to go forward with this resolution. And so I guess I thought what Leonard was asking as well, is that we have an up or down vote on whether or not we're willing to go forward with this resolution, which is pledging the Springfield Economic Development Agency support to siting an indoor track facility on its North Glenwood property. It's not in support of the indoor track facility. It is in support of siting it on the North Glenwood property. So that's what I would request. And if we have enough people who are interested in doing that, then I have some things I want to add for conditions, but I'm wondering if we have that many.
Sean?
I think we could start with the resolution, because that's like what it seems like SCDC needs to go forward with the grant, and see where, and maybe we should start talking about what conditions people could get comfortable from behind. My reading of it, and somebody jump in if I'm wrong, is the resolution as a format would work as an avenue to sort of get SCDC to the next level.
Mary Bridget, is that understanding correct?
Yeah, the resolution, it can be a path for SCDC to have some certainty about where the track would be located. It would be a public affirmation of SEDA saying that, but then SEDA could also insert some conditions that would help them better understand or be ready to structure a transaction when it gets to that time.
Joe's raised his hand, Marilee.
Joe B?
I just wanted to state that this is all for clarification, Mary Bridget, that if the resolution binds this body, even though we don't know the terms and conditions, binds this body, which when you said certainty is what I assume, to provide that land for this purpose. And since staff haven't even completed the work that on March 9th, because of COVID, you were going to, at this moment, I would vote no. That doesn't mean I would vote no in a month from now or 2 months from now, but at this point in time, if it's a certainty thing, and if we are committed to, I would vote no, but I rely on you to tell me whether it is or not.
It would be a certainty thing if it didn't have conditions attached to it. So what we could do is take a similar path that Willamette did, publicly support and pledge the support, but say, I need to have these things, as SEDA needs to have these things happen or understand these things better before we will do that. That was the intent with the resolution.
But that's not in paper at this point in time, and it's not anything we would be voting on.
That's correct. I think the direction would be move forward with drafting a resolution that would come back for official approval. So you wouldn't be approving that particular resolution that's in your packet. That was a draft resolution to get ideas from you about the kind of conditions you would like to see in a resolution.
Leonard?
Thanks, Marilee. I'm just going back to the original action requested. It says provide guidance regarding SCDC request to use the SEDA North Glenwood property for the indoor track facility. And I think that we should be focused on that as the thing that we're going to be ruling on tonight. Am I missing anything?
No, I think what you just said and what Mary Bridget just said basically say the same thing in different words.
Okay, all right. I'd like to move that we move to a roll call vote on this.
1 second, let me go to Sean.
I don't think we're planning to vote on it tonight. We're trying to give them direction on the language to put it together so that we can actually have a vote in whenever they can get it scheduled. So the real question is, you know, people have some concerns. I think, what's it really going to take to get to yes, right? So I hear a potential condition of being like, you know, we're going to do it for a set time, right?
Right.
And like, I don't know what that time is, but I think that the question now becomes, okay, if we want to get to yes, what does that look like?
Sherry.
Thank you. Okay, you're saying a set time, Sean, and you're saying add some conditions to the resolution. I think what I'm saying, and possibly I hear other people saying, is the question for the resolution is pledging that the SEDA will support the siting of an indoor track on its north limit of property. If that's the question, my answer is no.
Okay, let me back up just a second here and see if I've got Mary Bridget in the right in what she said in the right framework, and along with Sean, and what seems to be confusing is we're not voting on that tonight. We're not voting on that resolution tonight. We are placing our support that says we would like to do that, but we need these conditions met first before we have a formal resolution come back from Mary Bridget that says and points out that these conditions have been met, or that this understanding is there, or whatever. I don't see, unless I'm totally off base, I didn't see us doing a formal vote tonight beyond saying, yes, we want to go forward, and we want these conditions. And again, well, Emmeline put the end of the year. I think October 31st or the end of the year for any conditions that we place on this would probably be fair, depending on what the conditions are. But how would you like those kind of conditions to come forward, Mary Bridget?
If there is consensus from the entire board to move forward with the resolution, then we can get input from board members about what those conditions are. I think it seems like what the conversation is about is even if there is consensus to move forward with the resolution at this point. So I think that seems to be the initial question, and then from there would be, okay, yes, then here's what we want it to look like, and here's when we want it.
Okay, so we should. How do you want to do a consensus?
So if you just want, go ahead, Commissioner Burney. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Am I interrupting?
No, go ahead, Joe.
Oh. We don't know what we're voting. We don't know what we're voting on. Why can't we have something to vote on?
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
I understand, but then why are we even talking about what Sean mentioned getting to yes? I'm not convinced 100% of everyone wants to get to yes. Maybe a majority of people do. I don't know. But you know, I would have different inputs than everyone would have. Again, I go back to my original question, which Mary Bridget, I believe, said yes, which is if we are making a commitment, I think it's premature. We don't have the information. If we're not making a commitment, that's different. I heard that we are.
Mary Bridget, more clarification, please.
Sure. So what we were trying to do tonight is just pick up the conversation we had on March 9th about moving forward with SCDC's request. So we put a resolution and an option in the packet so the board could see what these actual documents could look like. They're not final versions, but it's an opportunity to see what are we talking about when we're asking how does a body pledge its support. A body can pledge its support by having a resolution or by entering into an agreement. This is about property, so a real property option is a way you could do that, but you could also do some other contractor agreement with SCDC. So that was the intent, was to try and get more information from the board about whether they wanted to move forward with publicly affirming that they're in support of siting the track on that location, and what those types of conditions would be. So you could say, yes, I want to look at this resolution and have it come back for a formal vote, and I want it to, give us direction about the duration, what the conditions are, and anything else you want to insert in there. But it is about, at the end of the day, locating it on SEDA's property. I mean, that is the question before this board. Willamette Lane had a different question. They had whether would you own and operate the facility. So not all of their conditions are going to match up to what SEDA may be asking for.
Sean.
And I know we can go at this multiple ways. I'm comfortable moving a resolution forward that's going to commit the property. And I know we're trying to figure out if there's enough yeses to be able to do that. And I'd be comfortable with the condition of committing it for a year, and and asking SEDC to come back with a fully thought out plan where we can get all the information at that point.
Your camera just froze, Sean, on me anyway.
That was my comment.
Okay. Sherry?
Well, I think Joe Pishner had his hand up.
Joe P?
Joe P?
Yes, please. So no, I completely understand the apprehension. I too have that as far as saying, yes, let's sign on the dotted line and let's get it done. But we're definitely not to that point. I'm not comfortable to get to that point of saying, yeah, we're gonna buy this property and move forward and everything's gonna happen. I would like to move forward to get some more of this work done. I want them to give some certainty as far as, yes, we want this project. We've made it a priority as a council. We support it, but under the following conditions. And I think that's very wise of us. It shows that we're having some fiduciary responsibility. And that I would like to move forward with this and have it come back and saying, okay, here's the resolution based on these conditions. And then I would like to have a separate little discussion on what conditions we feel would be fair to impose on that resolution, and then make a vote. I don't want to come back and say, okay, these are your 3 conditions. I want to be able to have a meeting and say, let's talk about these conditions and then move forward. And that way, most of the people, if not everybody, should be comfortable knowing that their questions are answered. Joe brought up some great comments, and Sherry did too. And it's one of these things where it's like, we just need to set those conditions, but we need to agree on even the conditions. We need to talk about those. And I think that that's fair, but we can't even get to that point unless we move this forward so we can give that organization some certainty. But we know it's got a timeline, it's going to expire. So if they can't make it line up, it'll expire and everything reverts back. So I'm okay with that. I think that's actually a pretty protected commitment to me.
Sherry?
So I think that, yes, we did talk about priorities and projects for the city and what we would hope to see happen. And the indoor track was one of those things. At that time, we were not talking about where we're siting it. Right now, we're talking about where we are going to be willing to site it. And if you want to say, are we supportive of the indoor track facility? Hey, yeah, I'm willing to talk about that. And there are some things that I would want the city to put some conditions on as far as our support of that. But am I willing to site it on the North Glenwood property? That's what they need to know tonight, I think, for them to go forward. And if in fact the majority of this group says yes, they're willing to support siting the indoor track on the North Glenwood property, then at that point we come up with the conditions that would need to be met, and we do a formal vote. I think at this point, I don't know if it's a formal vote or not, and I guess we'd have to ask Mary Bridget, but I think that Leonard asked for that vote. I'm asking for that vote. I'd like for this, if there are enough SEDA members who want to site the indoor track on that particular property, then that's where we need to go forward from here.
Christine?
So I think if you're using the Lamma Lane example, is that what moving a resolution forward and looking at that property as the property that works is it allows SEDC to move forward, but it doesn't in no way, which you do with your conditions, is you always have the ability to say no. And it could be no on SCDC's part too. So it's a balance of allowing the group to have the flexibility to move forward with a certainty of a site. But at any one point along the way, that is, as I say, that is the condition with Chambers. It's a condition with Pivot also, is as long as you're moving forward, or you need to do some more fundraising, so you have to do something in phases. It's just the way you can ensure that SEDA isn't putting themselves in this is a do or die, we're going to say yes, and then that's it, and that's the end of the story. It's not an end of the story scenario. It's allow it to be used or to cite it on the property. And it didn't say it was donated, is allow it to move forward. And if in a certain amount of time, and Sean has mentioned a year, is allow for the conditions that would satisfy everyone within that year. So Mary Bridge, I'll just ask, could we break this into, yes, we want to put together a resolution and we're comfortable with the site and just do that? And then, because I think a lot of the discussion right now is whether you support doing anything.
Yeah, the board could have a question before the board about similar to what Board Member Van Gordon was talking about. Is the board supportive of directing staff to draft a resolution that pledges support for citing the track on that property with certain conditions? Those conditions would be that the resolution would expire by the end of the year. In this time, the parties will negotiate an agreement about fundraising milestones, about citing if the track actually can be cited on that location, what the land use implications are, what the adjacent property owners think. I mean, these are just conditions that I'm thinking, a public survey, those types of things. And then we can work on that resolution and bring it back to this board for approval. That could be a vote before the board today.
Sherry? Can't hear you.
All right. So Mary Bridget, could there also be a vote that says that the majority of this SEDA board does not support citing the indoor track facility on the North Glenwood property? Not that we don't support the indoor track facility, but that we do not support citing it on the North Glenwood property.
I think you could have it sounds like what you're asking is, can you do sort of a two-step process? First vote, do we support citing it on the property? And then the second, and then if that's a yes, then it's like, okay, how do we show our public support of it? So you could just have a straight up vote about, does the SEDA board support having it on the property? Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I would like to see.
Sean?
Okay, then I think, Marilee, do you want me to put that in the form of a motion so we can try to break where we're at?
Sure, that'd be glad.
So I move that we as a SEDA board support citing the indoor track on our North Glenwood property, with a discussion about what conditions and timeline that may look like in the future.
Marilee, Joe stuck his hand up right during his motion.
Joe B?
Well, I'm happy to wait for a second before I say anything.
Yeah, since there's a motion on the table, let's have a second and then discussion if that's okay.
Second.
All right.
All I was going to say was that who knows, but I think this is putting the future of this at risk to move forward now. I really do. I personally would rather vote because I don't have the information, and we've enumerated information we need. And I would personally suggest we defer a vote, but hey, I'm one person. I will vote no if there's a vote now, but that we defer a vote. Not that that changes anybody's minds, but that we defer a vote until we get the research letter requested March 9th back, until Mary Bridget has a chance to speak with all of us about what our proposed terms and conditions might be and feed it back to us so we could go through and whack some off and add others and just agree on something. But right now, this is very nebulous, and I just believe that Sean's motion is forcing a vote on something that is nebulous. I would like to see it move forward, but if we're voting on right now committing that property, put me in a tough position, but that's the way it'll go for me.
Sean?
Joe, I think we're trying to figure out a way through this, which is is there enough sort of consensus about can we move forward, and then we can have the question about what those next steps look like, right? So like I don't want to go over your your valuable feedback and valuable questions here. I think the question is, do we want to move forward with the question, like to that point of understanding what those conditions would be?
I'm sorry, Sean.
My motion, I don't think is committing physically committing the property. I think it's saying, okay, there's enough support to say, yes, we want to do this and we want to discuss the conditions.
Is there a reason we couldn't just ask staff to bring back the information in a month or whatever? Or is the reason relate to SCDC fundraising? I don't know.
I don't have a good answer to that question. I do know that it seems like we're stuck on the fact that what those conditions might look like. And I keep hearing people from a body language perspective, say that we don't just physically have enough support to get through this first step.
If I may,
Christine,
counsel.
did you have something?
Well, I just want to say every little bit that goes by, it does put we're still in the same point in trying to raise money and without a site. So moving it out further and further is very difficult.
We have Sherry. We can't hear you.
That's what I was going to say. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second.
And
Well,
just
thank
real
you.
quick, I think that Nancy Newton was trying to say something.
Nancy?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to respond to Board Member Bernie's concerns about staff bringing it forward. I think one of the problems that we're looking at right now is some of the questions that are on the table now are dependent upon where the facility would be located. So it is kind of as Board Member Van Gordon alluded to earlier, it is kind of a chicken and egg kind of conundrum because some of those questions are really predicated upon location. And so I don't want to give the impression that staff would be able to answer fully all of those questions within the next even couple of months without knowing the location of site. That's all.
And I think that's why we're incorporating the flexibility into it that gives us the exit if it should turn out to not be what we want, what we're looking for. That's why the conditions we're going in is to be able to do that. So we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Could I hear the motion again? Could I hear a motion again, please?
Sean?
I said that I move that we support putting the track on our North Glenwood property with a discussion about what those conditions might look like after this motion.
Thank you.
And Joe seconded it. Seeing as how I can't see everybody, I guess we should have a roll call vote. Neil?
Board Chair Woodrow, yes, I could do that roll call vote. Sean Van Gordon, I don't know that we heard you, Sean.
Yes.
Steve Moe,
No.
Sherry Moore,
No.
Leonard Stair,
No.
Mary Lee Woodrow,
Yes.
Joe Piscineri,
Yes.
Christine Lundberg,
Yes.
and Joe Burney.
No.
So those votes are 4 in favor of the motion and 4 against. So SEDA is an 8-member board. All board members are voting members. So if a motion does not have the majority, then the motion fails. A board member is welcome to present another motion or continue discussion.
Welcome to America.
On point there, Joe.
Any discussion or concern or what questions, whatever, at this point?
So I guess my question, general question would be, what would get us sort of to get us to yes? Because the questions that I hear, like Sherry, Leonard, Joe, Steve, you guys asking, it's gonna it sort of takes us getting to this next step. Otherwise, those answers don't exist. So I guess my point is, if we give them a certain amount of time, and I know we're rehashing things, right? It's just time, and we get the answers. So help me understand what you guys think you want to do.
Sherry?
Well, I heard Joe Burney say that we could have some input about what that property could potentially be used for. And we have not really made any inquiries in the last year or more about finding developers or people who might be interested in using the property. And so, either or, there's the only thing that's flying right now is citing a indoor track facility on that site. And so you're not going to be able to get me to yes as long as everything else is being eliminated. And I don't see that this particular group of people, as committed and wonderful as they are, have the kinds of funds and backing behind them to come forward and pay the city $6 million for that property.
Joe P?
So I think Sean and Joe has mentioned many things. I didn't hear a lot in this area from Steve or Leonard. And Sherry's position is clear. She doesn't want one. So doesn't want one in Glenwood.
No, that is not clear.
So anyway, so what I'm thinking is that I would like, Joe brought up some good points. I think there's some timelines here that wouldn't kibosh the whole thing. I don't want to see a kibosh. It's been a priority. It's something we need and want. And I think that some of those conditions, I think we can still move forward, but not necessarily with that commitment level this would have provided. But I think we can come back and say, okay, let's look at this again, and let's look at these conditions and now make a decision. Because I really kind of think that if we don't have these conditions or answer people's minds beforehand, I don't think we'll ever get to moving this project forward. And frankly, this type of project has got a much better chance of moving forward in this economic environment than just about any other project that anybody can put down on paper right at this point. So, but either way, I think it's ideal for that Glenwood area and for the community and region. But I think we need to come back in with those conditions. I'd like to meet again and say, okay, what points would make us comfortable? Where's the landing zone? And that's I think is the only way we're going to move forward.
Thanks, Joe. Leonard?
Thanks, Marilee. Yeah, I'd like to second Councilor Moore's request for an RFQ on other proposals for the property, and I'd still like to get any sort of research that the staff could put together on the economic impact on the residents of Glenwood. Thank you.
Christine? No? Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I was waving, but you
Joe?
couldn't see me.
Joe B?
And Mayor, did you not have your hand up, Mayor? First?
No, she waved it off.
Okay. Sean, you asked what us for, and I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for, I have no clue what Sherry or Steve need, but let me tell you what I think. I think we move on both fronts. I think we, as Joe said, we hammer out some of these details on that site for this project, and we see if there are some opportunity fund investors seriously to see if we even have an alternative. The worst thing that could happen is nothing happens. And now that we're off of this vote, I just want to say I lend my support to what Joe said. But don't kid ourselves. We don't know if there are some other opportunities for that property, and we can find it out in not too long a time. And that's my only point. And that's why I didn't want to commit at this point in time. And that's why I said there might be opportunities we lose by committing. And I am painfully aware of what quality people every member of the SCDC board is. I had the honor of sitting with them for several months, and I thank Mayor Lundberg for that honor. These are good people. So I think they also ought to look and assess whether there's other sites perhaps that could work. And, we all ought to work together, shake hands and agree. Nothing's been agreed to yet, but it's not that we're not trying. We can chew gum and walk at the same time.
Sean?
Hey, and Joe, I think your comments have got some value with the way forward. I guess I'm hearing from a staff perspective that we need to give some, like, if we go with the chew bubblegum approach, right, that we need to do something, work something so that group can work to get past this point. Otherwise they're stuck.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, I think that's where we're trying to figure out here,
and
right?
Forgive me, I know I don't understand government enough. I know that. I'm sorry. But Mary Bridget said because of COVID, she hasn't been able to talk to the other property owners. Really? You can't pick up a phone and call people up and see, how they feel about certain things. I think we can get some work done. And part of that work is further researching this site for this activity and further researching this and all the other sites for potentially other activity. That's all.
I'm not exactly sure what to say at this point, other than if nothing else, some direction to Mary Bridget, and also there's got to be a timeline in there. There's got to be deadlines, or we're going to be sitting here a year from now trying to have the same conversation. So there's got to be some kind of a timeline, deadline. You want to throw conditions in to get conditions, get information or conditions. Then if we want to go anywhere at all, we've got to have a deadline for getting that information. Or like I said, we're going to be sitting here a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, having the same conversation. And that doesn't get us anywhere, or the track, what I said before, when I came onto council, we were in the middle of doing the refinement plan for Glenwood. Here I sit 10 years later and nothing has happened. And I haven't seen people stepping out. I haven't even seen Glenwood itself stepping out to do anything for itself. So are we going to spend another 5 or 10 years to have continual conversations, or take a hold of a project and try to find a place for it and get it going, and whether it's the track or not? But we all love Glenwood and realize that it can be a wonderful place. The location of it is phenomenal. But we can't just keep sitting back and saying, well, maybe somebody will step up, or maybe we can talk to this person, or maybe these people will have an idea, or what. We just can't keep doing it. That's my 2 cents. Sherry.
My understanding was that the meeting tonight, the purpose was to discuss the North Glenwood real property request, which we have discussed at length. And we did take a vote about whether or not we were going to be willing to site the indoor track facility on the North Glenwood real property. And we voted 4-4, 4 no, 4 yes. So at this point, it seems to me that the purpose of this meeting has been fulfilled.
Well, maybe so, Sherry, but Mary Bridget also gave us the option of being able to come up with something else that would move us forward to get a direction, to get an answer, to get a forward motion. Otherwise, we can sit back and do nothing. But Mary Bridget told us that we have the opportunity to create another option to get an idea or to have a discussion on. Sean?
No,
Oh, I thought you had your hand up.
So I thought that Joe Burney did suggest another option, which was to see if we could find some other, at least get some requests. What is it called? I don't remember what it's called out there, and go forward on asking for other input and requests. That was one suggestion. I realize, okay, never mind.
Joe P.
Okay, didn't want to, if she had more to say, I'm okay with her talking.
Oh, were you finished, Sherry?
No, I don't think she was.
Oh, go ahead, finish. I thought you were finished.
Okay. So I think we can still, that nothing's gone away just because we had a 4-4 vote. It's just a matter of we're not moving forward with this topic today. And under this, what's written today on this action, we can bring up similar actions every Monday for the next 25 weeks if we wanted to, and look at, if it's different each time, that's fine. We can look at it in those different ways. So as far as I'm concerned, everything is still on board. We just need to look at it with more facts, with more information, to make people more comfortable moving forward. And as far as I'm concerned, then I'm totally happy with that. And I think that makes sense. I think we have a responsibility to do that as opposed to just saying, okay, well, we got a 4-4 vote, it's dead. And that's not the case.
Sean?
And I think that's the issue. We're trying to find, we have to say something that we're supportive to try to get this thing going forward, right? Otherwise, we're just going to get stuck at the same spot, right? So what that phrasing looks like and what everybody's comfortable with, SEDC, from my reading of this, will not be able to bring us more information until we can kind of come to say collectively what we're willing to do.
Unless we ask for it. Christine, and then Sherry.
Well, first, I think you just threw a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity out the window. Second, we're forgetting that SEDC needs to absorb this information now and see whether they want to work with us. Okay, so let's think about it that way also. Then it's, what else needs to be talked about? Because I think it's pretty clear that the vote was really, we just don't want the track on the property. So, that's because we need to move forward. And if SED or SEDA just said no, or it was 4-4, which is really a tie, but it's no because it's a tie, then how, it's nothing to take to SEDC and give them any confidence to want to even, talk about it. So I have to, can take that into consideration. That board will have to take that into consideration.
Sherry.
Well, a part of the issue statement was that before considering SEDC's request, SEDA was preparing to issue a request for qualifications for private entity to develop the North Glenwood property. That's where we were. And so to me, it seems that might be something we could say to go forward for. And I would be welcome a proposal from SCDC to purchase that property for $6 million. I mean, there's nothing saying that they couldn't come to us with some other proposal. So therefore, if it involves some money, I'm willing to listen.
Christine?
There was never a moment where it was supposed to be considered a donation, outright donation. We just talked about that it was, you could have it in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what's written on that paper, Sherry, because Mary Bridget's already said it. She just wrote some stuff down. The idea is we decide with SCDC how you want that worded. So all of that got just thrown out the window, and the discussions are underway to put a transient, it's not a transient room tax, but it's a whole separate entity together that is has its own board, but the hoteliers have been on board. They are on board with it. And they haven't been on board with an increase in 25 years. They were getting ready to do that. This action tonight has just thrown that out the window. So you have not only stopped it, but you set it back. So I just,
Madam Chair?
Joe B?
I hope that the mayor is incorrect in her assessment. That's not why I voted the way I voted. I voted much like Councilor Piscineri mentioned. The TRT, which was referenced, I've worked to get the county administrator to agree with Travel Lane County for certain reasons to actually increase that, which is, I think, what the mayor was referring to. That hasn't gone away as a potential. I also don't think, unless you're right, unless SCDC just says, oh, the hell with it, you don't want to work with us. But I don't think this body's wanting to work with them has gone out the window. I think more specificity has been discussed as desirable, and assuming that's the site. And I think, at least speaking for myself, since I was referred to, and I think it would be just healthy to see if make a serious attempt to see if there's other investor interest in the entire parcel, because that has been precluded for the last year and a half from occurring.
So if I could just clarify a little bit on the RFQ that the city had been working on, and then I think what Commissioner Burney is talking about. So the city was, as part of council direction, working on a request for qualifications for a private developer to develop that property, had done work on speaking with developers over last summer and preparing the RFQ. We paused on issuing the RFQ when the request for SCDC for the track came, because if you want a private developer to develop their property and put out an RFQ, our thinking was, and maybe this was incorrect, but that you wouldn't want to do that if they thought that the entity wanted to use it for another purpose and would be pulling out of that transaction. I think what Commissioner Burney might be talking about is not the same as the RFQ that we were talking about issuing, that it's a very specific thing, just a request for information for potential entities that may be connected with opportunity zones and might be interested in developing the property for the opportunity zone. So I just want to clarify that those are two different things, that we're not mixing them together.
All that is correct. Also, to make this even more clear as mud, forgive me. You know what? I think there's even a huger task ahead that we all ought to be focusing on. Our governor is wanting to end opportunity zones in Oregon. And one of the reasons is because some have abused those, but the other reason is not much is going on here in terms of that. And I think there's SEDA, the chamber, all business groups really ought to be lobbying for that not to occur. And since it has not yet occurred, I think this is our last opportunity to at least be able to demonstrate, if there's interest from others, that there is. And Mary Bridget, yes, you are right. I was discussing a different mechanism to solicit interest and move forward.
I'm not sure where we are. Sean?
Maybe are they Steve, Mo? Can you help us here? You got any brilliant ideas? Oh, Guru of Glenwood?
I can't see him, so.
Now I have to remember what I said. I'm not sure exactly what an RFQ is, but I've always thought that we should put that thing on the market and let developers come to us. If we don't like them, we say no. As simple as that. And we just keep searching until we find the right one. So why do we have to do an RFQ? And the other thing is, one comment for Christine, if we go out in the public on this thing and get support for this from the real public out there, I'll carry the flag for you. Just remember that.
Sean?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mary Bridget.
I was going to say, Board Member Mo, the RFQ stands for Request for Qualifications. It's essentially a way to put the property on the market. It's a way to market it to a specific group of developers who know how to develop that kind of property. So that is what that is.
And we can still determine that when they come in and make an offer. We see what they're made of. We don't have to accept any offers. We determine that. So that's all.
I guess I fear that we're going to get stuck in the same circle of if we're both saying, hey, SEDC, go out and talk about putting a track, like talk to the public about supporting it, and we're going to talk about the RFQ piece in the same direction, we're going to get stuck in the same spot. Right? Like I hear what people are saying, and I don't think we're all kind of collectively going, okay, we can't stay here, right? We have to actually say something that what we want to actually have happen. Otherwise, we're not going to get more information about the track. And I understand, like, you know, there's some people that may not like the track as an idea, right? That's perfectly valid. You're entitled to your opinion, but we got to figure something out. And I'm not sure that I would be supportive of putting out a blank RFQ again and then telling the track group that we're going to have that, you know, they need to go out and get more public input and revisit the same 5 sites that they revisited the last year and a half, because we're going to end up in the same spot. And I don't know why everybody doesn't see that.
I see it.
Yeah,
So, like, I hear Commissioner Burney, I hear you kind of saying that you're like, if you got more information, you would be good, but we still actually have to say, you know, that we're interested in a track, even if and we would like more information. And I just don't hear enough people saying that.
Well, you heard me saying it.
Sherry?
I have never said that I wasn't interested in an indoor track event center. I've never said that. I said, you know, and the SCDC did ask SEDA to donate or sell the property for a nominal amount. That was on 3/9/2020.
So Sherry, I know we've been at this for a while, and I know we're all starting to get a little bit frustrated. Just put that one. I understand. I'm hungry too. Put that one to a side for a second. Like, it doesn't actually matter what that says, right? We're here now, right? Which is
right. And we took a vote. We took a vote.
Right, but we're still sort of stuck in the same spot. So you're kind of saying two things at the same time. You're saying,
no, we're not. We're not stuck in the same spot. If 4 of us have said we do not want to site the indoor track, wonderful idea that it is, on that particular property at this point in time.
Okay, but you keep caveating that with that at this point in time.
No, I don't. I actually just say no. We just said no. 4 of us voted no. And so my feeling is if that was the purpose of this meeting, we have fulfilled the purpose of the meeting by, in fact, answering that question.
Like, we got to decide something to do with this piece of property. Otherwise, we're doing it.
No, we don't. Why do we have to decide what to do with this property?
Because we own it, Sherry. Like, and we
All
own it.
right, and we said that we were going to do a request for qualifications for private entity to develop the North Glenwood property. That's still on the floor. I mean, that was still where we were going before this whole SCDC group came forward. And so if we're saying no, we don't see that as being the spot where we want to see the track sited, then it seems to me we go back to, and I'll ask Mary Bridget for that, shouldn't we go back to where we were prior to this request?
I think you could do a couple things tonight. A board member could come up with a different motion to see if you can get a vote there, or you could just give staff direction if you can all agree on if there's some direction and information you would like before this comes back before you.
Why would this come back before us?
Well, if the board directed, look, we're not ready to vote on a resolution or some kind of agreement tonight, but I want to know these next three things, come back and bring it. You could do that, or another board member can make a different motion.
Do we need to decide that we would go out for another RFQ?
I think probably with the RFQ, we talk with the city manager, but I think maybe next steps on that would be to bring it back before the board with a review of where the RFQ is, where it stands now. We have had this COVID happen in the meantime, and just what next steps would be. So that would most likely be the next thing to come back before the board.
Joe had his hand up, Marilee.
Joe B.
Hey, we're only an hour and 15 minutes late. Does this happen a lot? To provide as an attempt, as Sean has been desperately trying to do also, to get us out of this vacuum. I warned against voting this evening as I was listening to what was going on. I felt it was premature. I felt we could get some more information. It would seem that some of the Willamette items that have to occur, is it correct? My understanding is that has to occur by October, did I hear? Which is all of 3 months from now?
No, actually, the Willamette on their resolution, that's an attachment in your packet. The public survey information needs to be done by the end of the year. And then Willamette had other milestones out actually to like 2025 for construction.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, why don't you give us all a chance to review those, see what we might want to put together and look at it again? I mean, I don't know what to say. I tried.
Christine?
Well, I think it's clear that there, since you can be a split vote and it just goes away, I think that SCDC needs to have a conversation. And so, and some of us are going to have a, what do we want to support here? So it's kind of, let's stop talking about it. And I think we're done for tonight.
Ready to adjourn?
I agree.
We're
Yes.
adjourned.